Well, good afternoon, my friends, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Thursday, September the 22nd. I'm here along with Spencer the Guru Urquhart. Zach Ewing is out ill today, so we can roast him all day if we want, Spence. I mean, that's going to be that'll be the mission of today, to roast Zach Ewing.
Yeah, some big bucks picks. We'll have to roast him when it gets to that.
They're almost as bad as Uncle Big Nick's picks, but we'll talk about picks later on the show. We are going to have fun today. We're going to talk about obviously previewing Saints-Panthers. We talk a little bit about LSU and New Mexico. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. They are big favorites over New Mexico. We're also going to get into NFL tonight, a game, Cleveland and Pittsburgh. That is our daily best bet. And then we'll talk about some of the other games in the NFL. This could be one of the toughest weeks in the NFL, just going through it, especially if you're still alive and knockout, you're doing a really good job. But that's the good news. You're still alive. The bad news is this is one of the toughest weeks I've seen in a few years. So it'll be interesting. We'll go over some of the NFL matchups, and then we'll roll it out with our big bucks picks and show you what we got there. Before we do all that, though, got to take care of business. And by the way, feel free to chime in. We got one comment already. We are going to show any comments, questions you might have. Go ahead and feel free to type them in. We'll be glad to show them here in the show. But again, we got to take care of business. Caesars Sportsbook, the official odds partner of bet.NOLA.com. First bet on us, they say. Up to a bet as high as $1,250. If this is for New Year's only, use code NOLA full. You get a free bet up to $1,250. Anything you bet. $100, $400, $800, $5, whatever you want to bet. If you lose, you will get that bet back as a free bet. One time only. Caesars Sportsbook. Also, don't forget, Cashing In with Carville comes out every Thursday on a lot of these same YouTube channels here. The Bayou Bets YouTube channel, which we started just a few weeks ago. We humbly ask you to subscribe to the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, where you can see Cashing In with Carville, all his stories. No one has better stories in Louisiana than James Carville, right? Forget about politics, whether you agree with his politics or not. He has some of the greatest stories. He is obviously a huge LSU and Saints fan. He gives his picks every Thursday. And then also, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. Inbox every morning. Well, we say that. It's actually 6 days a week. We take Tuesday night off, so it is not in your inbox on Wednesday morning. But every morning except Wednesday, sign up at NOLA.com/BayouBets. Get your newsletter. We have fun with that every night. Tonight, I'm doing it. So you can read my newsletter tonight if you so choose. If you don't, well, that's up to you too. You know, we have fun. Courtney Smith says, "Who dat?" And she's getting excited about the big game this week, Spencer. The line has changed. The Sharps seem to be on the Carolina Panthers, and if we look at the spread, -2.5, and you got to pay juice. You got to pay juice at -2.5. You got to pay -120. But you can also get the Panthers at +3 -120. I just checked. So either way, if you don't like the spread, you can have a little bit of alternate line for just a little bit less. You can get, I think, -2 at the Saints for -130. So somewhere along those lines, depending on what you like, Spence, the odds makers, actually the Sharps, who usually are the ones who know what they're talking about, seem to be favoring the Panthers in this one.
And I can see why, because the Panthers have their backs against the wall, are 0-2. I mean, the Saints kind of do as well, coming off the rough loss against Tampa. But being that it's in Carolina, I can definitely see why the Sharps like them as a home dog, because it's a divisional game. I mean, last year the first Saints-Panthers game ended in a big win for the Panthers. So I think this year's will be closer for sure, but I don't like it. As a Saints enthusiast, I don't feel too positive. Hope they can do a little better than I'm thinking, because I think this could be another rough Sunday.
Yeah, well, I got to say, in my picks column this morning, for me, it's kind of like last week. I'm as unsure about this week going in as I was last week. And the Saints proved they can beat Tampa Bay, not just because they beat them 4 times in the last 2 years, but for the first really 3 quarters, the Saints were the better team in that game. They just kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter. A lot of things. We don't need to rehash all the things that happened in the Tampa Bay game. But the way I feel about this one is the Saints are definitely a better team than Carolina overall. But that doesn't mean they're going to go in. Winning on the road is tough. But I'll say this, Spencer. This is as close to a must-win as you can get in week 3 as you possibly can get. Against a division opponent, you're supposed to win. You're supposed to beat. You don't have that cushion. Had you won against Tampa Bay, this one would be much easier to swallow if you lose. But now you can't drop to 1-2 with the schedule that the Saints are facing coming up later on. This is a huge. Game becomes much bigger, and they've shown they've had trouble at times stopping Christian McCaffrey. They've been okay at times. Some games they've been okay. Sometimes they've been terrible. Last year they weren't very good against these Carolina Panthers. The year before that they were. So who knows what we're going to see.
Yeah, this is one, as you say a lot of times, Jim, I'm not touching this with a stick because that's just, we don't know what's going to happen.
Like I say, I wouldn't touch this with Zach's money.
Right. Yeah, that's what you ain't touching it then because it's one of those where we just, I feel like it could be a Saints blowout. It could be a Panthers blowout. It could be really close. I'm thinking more along the lines it'll be really close because I feel like both teams will be kind of desperate. I'm just worried, though, that with Jay, I'm just still very concerned, butcher my words there, about Jameis. That is he healthy or not? And if he's not, then that's going to ultimately cost the Saints in the end, I feel. Kind of like the way last week against Tampa when he was throwing those desperation balls. They weren't even close.
Yeah, not only should you be, concerned with that, but you worry about, Kamara practiced yesterday. I didn't see his status today, whether he practiced today, but he was in limited fashion on Wednesday. I would imagine it'd be the same today. Again, I didn't look before we came on the show. I had a lot going on today, but you don't just worry about that, though. I mentioned in my column, and I talked about it earlier in the week. I'm not just worried about that. Jameis Winston, to me, he's obviously Dennis Allen's guy, and he should be. I'm not saying he shouldn't be. I know a lot of people out there are hoping that he, would rather him not be. But I think Jameis Winston clearly is the number one quarterback on this team. But that being said, if you got 4 cracked vertebrae and it's affecting your accuracy and affecting the way you move around and affecting every part of your game, I'm just hoping that Dennis Allen at some point realizes that if he needs to make a switch, that he's able to make a switch. And judging by what I heard in his press conference on Sunday, sitting right in front of him, less than 5 feet away from him, I'm not really sure I like what I heard because that's my guy. That's my guy. And that's great. You're supposed to say that's my guy. But at some point you have to realize, even if he's your guy, if he's injured and he's not effective, you have to make a switch. That's why you went out and signed Andy Dalton in the first place.
Yeah, it'll be tough to swallow seeing Andy Dalton on the field already. He definitely didn't want to see him. You're hoping Winston could play the whole season. But if he has to play, then he has to play it. Honestly, him and Baker Mayfield really aren't that much different. Baker Mayfield's probably slightly better, but I'm not a big fan of Baker. I think the Saints defense will be able to contain him. What I'm kind of concerned about, though, is with Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. They've got playmakers where even if Baker Mayfield's not that good, these guys will make him look good. Kind of like last year with Sam Darnold when the Saints played Carolina early in the season. It wasn't that Sam Darnold was that great, but he had all his playmakers healthy. So Carolina early in the season is not an easy task. They could easily be 2-0. They were right there with Cleveland and the Giants. So I don't know, but Who Dat Nation, let us know what y'all think. I know we got a lot of Who Dats in here, so I know y'all probably think I'm negative, but I'm just trying to keep it real. But let us know what y'all think because this is one that this could be a season definer for sure.
Uncle Big Nick asked a good question. Is an injured Jameis really better than Dalton? The answer has to be no, right? I don't know that anyone thinks that an injured Jameis Winston's better than Andy Dalton. But maybe, look, we both have talked about, and Zach as well, about the overreactions after a week or 2 weeks. You're only finished with 1/8, not even 1/8 of the season. So let's not go crazy and start overreacting. So let's see what happens. Give him the chance. I think you got to give James the chance to come back and see what happens. All right, let's move on a little bit. We're going to circle back to the Saints in a little bit, but I do want to talk about some other things that are going on, especially tonight's Thursday night game. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's actually inverted. I believe the Browns are at Pittsburgh tonight. Am I right about that?
I think is at Cleveland tonight.
You're right. You are correct. It is at Cleveland, -4.5. All right, you're correct about that. I'm glad.
Okay. I was like, I know I double checked the slides. I was like, if I double checked and still got it wrong, man.
So it is at Cleveland. The line up to date, it is going back to 4.5, which is interesting because this game started, I talked about it in my picks column and in daily best bets. This game started last week. It was at Steelers +3. Then it went all the way to Steelers +5.5. Dropped down this morning, Spencer. The sharps were all over the Brownie. We're all over the Steelers. It dropped to -4 for the Browns, and now it's back to 4.5. So there's money all over the place on this game that has affected this line. It has changed quite a bit. I'm interested to see, in both the daily best bets and my NFL picks column, I like the Steelers. I think that I think the Browns, even with that great running game they have, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, I think they obviously have one of the best running games in the NFL. But the Steelers are really good against the run, so they're going to force Jacoby Brissett. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, a super low-scoring game, maybe a snooze fest. In that case, if you're going to give me 4.5 points, I'm probably going to take Pittsburgh here.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I'm not really liking either side here, but if I had to pick, I'd go Pittsburgh because I'm thinking they could potentially win this straight up. So if you give me 4.5, there's some value there because with their defense and Coach T, I mean, they know how to scheme against teams that are one-dimensional, and Cleveland's very one-dimensional to where
no question.
In the matchup history, it's like Pittsburgh usually contains Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt because they know that's what they need to do. They're well coached, and even though they don't have TJ Watt, I still think they'll be able to contain them to the point where as long as Mitchell Trubisky doesn't throw 2 or 3 picks, they should be right there to at least cover the spread.
Jim Derry along here with Spencer the Guru Urquhart. If you're joining us a little late, Zach Ewing is out sick today. We wish him well. We hope he can recover from. He's got a little stomach bug going on, so we hope when Spence. That's another thing. You know, when you got kids, you don't know what you're going to pick up at any point. You know, those kids bring home so much stuff from school. That's why, it's funny because in the summer, no one gets sick hardly because the kids don't go to school. So they don't hardly bring anything home. But once school starts, bam, there you go. You're getting sick again. So we wish Zach well and hope he can feel better soon. And we'll see him on Monday. Look, all you regulars out there and anybody else, feel free to chime in. Give us your comments, questions. We'll show them here on the air. We'll be glad to talk about them. But it's time to move on to the rest of week 3 in the NFL and some key matchups that we have highlighted for you here on Sunday. Oh Lord, let's get right into it. And I'm gonna save one of your picks for your big bucks picks because I don't want to talk too much about Bills Dolphins yet. But is there anything else on here that catches your eye that maybe not in your big bucks picks, but you see that an interesting line, maybe there's some value on?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I know you hate the Colts too, Jim, but I think there's some value to be had there with 5.5. Because and the big reason for that, I feel, is that they're supposed to be getting their All-Pro linebacker back. He was Darius Leonard, now goes by Shaquille Leonard. So I'm thinking with him back, that's going to really solidify their defense to where they should be able to somewhat contain Mahomes and company and keep that game fairly close. And that's a little teaser. I do have them on my big bucks. So something a little wilder than that. But as far as if I'm just looking for a play here that I feel pretty good about, I'll take the Colts to cover.
Well, before we move on, I mean, to show you why Uncle Big Nick goes 0-5, he posted this question. He didn't realize Zach was gone. He watched the show for like 10 minutes and didn't realize Zach was gone. And we wonder why he went 0-5 last week. So, I mean, there's a good reason for that. Going back to our pick, that's enough roasting. Going back to our pick, actually, I don't dislike the Colts this week. I like the Colts this week.
Oh, okay. There you go.
In my NFL picks column, one of my best bets of the week is the under here. And I'm going to tell you why. I really do like the Colts, but I just can't put fake money, real money, any kind of money on Matt Ryan right now. He's a statue back there. And what do the Chiefs do best? They rush the quarterback. So I think that I agree with you about the Colts defense. I think they're going to be playing at their best. Their backs are up against the wall. I like the Colts defense this week, but I kind of like the Chiefs defense too. So overall, if I had to make a bet, and this line has dropped significantly, it started at 6.5 this week. It is down to 5.5. So if I had to pick a team, I would take the Colts with the spread because Aunt Mabel and Drunk Joe are on the Chiefs because of what they've seen the first 2 weeks. They're back. The Chiefs line kind of inflated. I think that's way too large of a spread. I think this line should be more like 4 or 3.5 even. So I do like the Colts against the spread, but I much prefer the under 50.5. I don't think that this game is going over. I like the defenses there. But another game that catches my eye here I was about to pretend like I was a leprechaun and sent it something and say me-I. The 49ers Broncos. I think we're going to learn a whole lot about both of these teams this week, Spencer. It's not part of my best bets, but I will say it's one of the games that just missed my best bets because I like the 49ers big here. I'm a little leery of taking them on the road at the Broncos because the Broncos are kind of in a weird spot too. I don't like what I've seen out of Nathaniel Hackett so far with the Broncos. I don't like what I've seen out of Russell Wilson so far. And I think the 49ers, with the big rebound they had last week, I think they could prove they have something to prove. And I think the 49ers roll here.
Yeah, I think there could be some value there because they're definitely the more talented team, the more well-coached team. So they should get it done. I just feel like, though, with Russ, it's like I think he's going to do a lot better. I know the 49ers have a good defense, but I see him bouncing back somewhat this week. So it's one that, yeah, it almost made my card because I was thinking, like, man, the 49ers, that's easy. They're going to win that. They're a better team. But, it's on the road, and we all know Denver can be a tricky place to play. And it's like, man, Nathaniel Hackett, it's like he can't get any worse, can he? I mean, I guess you can always get worse, but I would think he would learn from his mistakes and get a little better in the coming
Well, you would
weeks.
think he would learn, but I mean, that doesn't always mean he's going to learn. And
Exactly, yeah. I'm not saying he's perfect. He's far from perfect, but
as I look right now,
he should.
There's an even split right now. 64% of the money is on the 49ers. 65% of the tickets are on the 49ers. So that kind of scared me off a little bit that it's that big of a lean towards the Niners. I think that in the end, that's what kept me off of it as part of my big bucks picks or part of my NFL picks best bet. So I like it. I'm not ready to play it. And that line is also going up. That was close to a pick it, I believe, early in the week. So the money has gone towards San Francisco enough to make me lay off of it in big bucks and not make it one of my big picks. We're going to get to big bucks in a minute, but I do want to talk about LSU. And I think I forgot to was there a college football slide that I missed in here?
Yeah, there was.
Okay. I'm going to try to get that. But first I want to talk about LSU, Spence. And LSU minus 31.5. This started out at 29. It's jumped all the way to 31.5 against the Lobos. Not a terrible team. 6:30 p.m. on Saturday in Death Valley. This is the last non-conference game for a while for the Tigers. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Lobos could cover that. Y'all probably think, man, you're negative today, Spencer, with the Saints and LSU. But I definitely still think LSU wins. I mean, no one's going to actually pick New Mexico to win outright. But it's just with the spread, I just don't think LSU is going to steamroll this team like they did Southern. I mean, this is a Division I opponent. They've got to win this year against, I believe it was, or 2 wins maybe. They're not a terrible team. I mean, they're not great, but they're not terrible to where I think they could at least score a few touchdowns, especially late if LSU would get a big lead and call off the Dogs. I don't think they'll be as incompetent as Southern as far as scoring. And that's not trying to hate on Southern, but it's just, I mean, they're a lot better. Like, this game should be a lot closer. The line's a lot closer than 50-something with Southern. Yeah. So it's just tough to play these. And like you said, it's like you got to be a sicko to bet on those. Which this one isn't quite as bad, but it's pretty bad. I wouldn't touch this.
I got to be. I mean, honestly, why would you play it? Either way. I mean, really. I mean, unless you just feel strongly one way or the other. I mean, super strongly. When you're talking about a 31.5 point spread, I'm not touching those. I mean, I've been burned many times. Look, last year when Alabama was rolling, a couple of times I went and took Crimson Tide because I thought they were going to steamroll whoever, and then they win by 40 instead of 42.
Yeah.
So I mean, you get burned by those more oftentimes than not. All right, I have our college football slide, and here are some of the big matchups of the week. Obviously, Clemson, Wake Forest. Uncle Big Nick and I talk about that. He likes Wake Forest. Baylor at Iowa State. The big one in the SEC, Florida at Tennessee. Tennessee laying 10.5. Now, which Florida team are we going to see is interesting. Also, Arkansas at Texas A&M. Southern Miss coming to play Tulane. The Green Wave off of their big Power 5 victory against Kansas State last week. Back at home at Ullman, giving up 13 to Southern Miss. And USC is -6 at Oregon State. Anything jump out here? Obviously, I want to talk a little bit about Tulane and Southern Miss because we don't talk enough about the Green Wave. But what else do you see that you like?
For sure. Yeah, I kind of like Florida to cover, and I don't think and I'm not just saying that because I like Billy Napier. I think they're gonna bounce back this week after. I mean, they won last week, but they played a stinker. They were lucky to have even won that against USF, but I think they'll play closer for sure this week. Tennessee's a team they're just hard to depend on when they play quality competition. I mean, they barely beat Pitt a couple weeks ago. I mean, yeah, they beat up on bad teams, but Florida's definitely not a bad team. So 10.5. Yeah, give me the points with Florida.
Before I get to my best pick of that college football slate, Courtney Smith wants to know, y'all like the over on this LSU game? We'll call that slide back up. And the over is 45 and a half.
45 and a half.
Basically, what you're saying is New Mexico's not going to score more than a touchdown or so. So, I mean, basically what they're saying is it's somewhere in the neighborhood of LSU 31 to what, 12, 31 to 13, somewhere along those lines. So, or no, I guess that would be.
That'd be slightly under.
38 to 7.
40,
38
30,
to 7.
yeah.
Maybe more like 38 to 7 in that ballpark. There, see, I finally figured it out. Give me long enough on my math question, and I'll figure it out. I got to say, that's another thing I wouldn't play. I guess in the grand scheme of things, yes, because really LSU could go over by themselves.
Yeah. If I had to pick, I'd probably go over.
I would, if you really, really want to, Courtney, I would take the over before I would take the under, but I probably wouldn't play that either. Just watch the game and have fun with it is my suggestion. All right, going back to our lines here, and what I see is there are two games stand out to me. Number one, I'm on the opposite side of you. I think this is a statement game chance for Tennessee. I don't think Florida is all that good. I think that Utah came in and maybe was a little bit overrated. They should have won the game anyway. Florida had high emotions. Billy Napier's opener. I think they played over their heads and a little bit better maybe than you would see in a regular game. I like Tennessee. I don't love it, though. Not enough to play it. I don't think I'm going to play this game, but if I had to pick one, I would pick Tennessee. This is another one there. The Sharps maybe on Florida a little bit because this was at 11 earlier in the week. And then the other one I'm really interested in, not just because it's the two SEC games, but you talk about statement games, Spencer, and I think Texas A&M and Arkansas, I have these teams very evenly matched. I had Texas A&M a couple notches ahead of Arkansas before the season started, but I think we're far enough into now to where we can kind of see that these teams are pretty close. Arkansas didn't play very well against Missouri State. Texas A&M finally played better, really stifled Miami last week. If that's the team we see this week, I like Texas A&M -2. I may even go as far to play it.
Yeah, I can't argue too much with that because they seem like a team they're starting to get it together. They've got a good defense, and it seemed like did they go with Max Johnson last week?
They did. Max Johnson played the whole game.
Okay, that's a good sign. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think they're a different team with him because I've heard they just seem like more of the. Yeah, they're definitely more talented. So I'd go with them. Arkansas is not bad, but they haven't really been that impressive this year, and their defense has looked really suspect. I'm thinking Max Johnson will be able to do pretty well there, to where that's a fairly.
I don't know if you've been to College Station, but that is a tough place to play.
Oh yeah, I have been there
a couple
actually.
times. Yeah, it's a really tough place to play.
Yeah, it's brutal. You stand up the entire time in a freaking 90-something degree heat. It was a fun experience in a way, but as far I was sunburnt and needing water after that.
I have been there twice. The first time I went was the first week of the season before Texas A&M was in the SEC. LSU just got demolished, and it was about 97 degrees. It was absolutely brutal, miserable for an LSU alum. I swore I would never go back, but I did. I did go back, and actually they played them late in the season against Johnny Football. It was much nicer weather back, I'd say about 10 years or so ago now. And that was a much more fun trip and enjoyable. But you're right, man. You better be ready to stand up the whole time because you're gonna. That's for sure. All right, you only got about 10 minutes left if you want to make a comment or a question. It is time for the Big Buck segment. Zach is not here to defend himself, but that doesn't mean we can't roast his picks and show where he stands. Now, reminder, we all started with a mythical $1,000 going into the season. That's the good news. The bad news is all three of us are under 1,000. Spencer and I are slightly below the original 1,000. In fact, I was actually above 1,000 until Monday night absolutely destroyed me. And we didn't get to Southern Miss Tulane. Nick wants to say Southern Miss is catching Tulane off a big win, a sneaky cover spot. Absolutely agree. I think this is I don't think Tulane's going to lose the game, but I think that they're going to be a little off their game. So we didn't mention that, and that is in none of our big Bucks picks. So wanted to mention that. All right, let's show Zach's totals here. And Zach, he's taking my place from last year. He is just stinking up the joint. His balance already at $883 from that original 1,000. And we're only going into week 3.
Yikes.
So we'll talk about his best bet of the week is Cincinnati. Minus 16.5 over Indiana. He's putting 33 mythical bucks on that. He's got 2 college picks and 3 NFL picks on here. His chalk, the Oklahoma Sooners, minus 13 over Kansas State. It doesn't matter to him that K-State is desperate, but maybe they were exposed a little bit by Tulane. I don't dislike that pick at all. And then the dog, we both have a similar pick, so that is on my card. It's not in the same spot, but it is on my card. He likes the Green Bay Packers. Even money over the Bucks, just putting $10 on it. And then his total of the week is tonight. Steelers, Browns, under 38. It is now 38.5, I believe. But when he made his bet, it was under 38. So he's putting $22 on that. And then his wild card pick, I completely dislike. I actually want to talk about this one for a minute. Falcons now pick them over Seahawks. That was Seahawks minus 2. About a day and a half ago, and now all of a sudden it is a pick'em game. There's a podcast that I listen to every week, and I've been listening to it for a few years now. And I think their analysis up until this year has been outstanding, and going through it and listening, it's really helped me, especially when I'm in line with their picks way more times than not. I get it right. So it kind of scares me off the ones that I don't like, but I just don't get their analysis this year. And one of the things they spent a lot of time on this week, it's a 3-hour podcast. It's called, I'll give them a plug, RJ's Dream Preview. And it is, these guys are great to listen to. And one of the guys on there, Steve Fezzik, who is a 2-time champion of the picks contest that they have every week. You pick 5 games each week against the spread. I think it costs $50,000 to get into it. The winner gets like $1 million. So it's definitely worth getting into. And he's won this thing twice now. So he knows what he's talking about. But their analysis this year, maybe it's just me, and I'm talking about professionals here, so it probably is just me. But some of their analysis, and one of their things today was they're all over Atlanta. They think Atlanta's a pretty decent team from what they've seen the first 2 weeks. What they fail to realize, and this is what happens when you're watching a bunch of games at one time and you don't go back and you're not able to watch every game in detail. I think the Saints game, the Saints played terrible. I mean, I think the Saints played absolutely almost as bad as they can play. Somehow found a way to win that game. And then last week, they get a miracle cover against the Rams. They had no business covering that game against the Rams last week. They get a block punt and score a touchdown off of it, and then they get a safety because the Rams are trying to strategically run out the clock or whatever. I just don't get the Falcons. To me, and we talked about it off the air, Spencer, I think Marcus Mariota and Geno Smith are the same quarterback.
Yeah, they were both backups last year, and Mariota might be a little bit better, but not a whole lot better because then you look at the weapons. Geno's got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, 2 really nice receivers. Mariota's got Drake London, who's been great as a rookie, and then Kyle Pitts. But so far, they've yet to really get Kyle Pitts involved. I mean, he took him number 4 overall, and you're not even using him. That tells me that's a dysfunctional offense. I'd take Seattle at home, but Zach needs that. That's his wild card. I mean, my wild card's pretty wild this week, so we'll get to that soon.
Jerry says he sees
Jerry,
2-1 this Sunday for the Saints. Well, Jerry, we hope
you're right, man. Yeah.
Our shows are a lot more fun when the Saints win. That's for sure. So thanks for writing in, Jerry. I'm 50-50. I got to be honest. I'm maybe 55-45. That's the way I'm leaning. I think it's about a 55% chance the Saints win. I don't see it. I had somebody write me this morning and say they think the Saints going to win in blowout. I don't see as many people calling for blowouts this week as we've had, especially the first week when everybody was calling for a blowout. I don't see a blowout at all. I think the Saints win, but I don't think the Saints cover. I think it's going to be a 1 or 2 point game. I really do. So I would not touch that line with a stick. All right, time to move on to Spencer's best bets. And there is one game in particular I want to talk about, not because I disagree with him. Another game I wouldn't touch with a stick. but I want to talk about this team because it seems like every.
Well, that's yours, Jim.
Oh, wrong one. That is mine. We'll get to mine in a minute. Hold on. There we go. See, this is why you don't let me do this kind of stuff. All right. I think every 20-something on the planet, and a lot of Aunt Mabels and drunk Joes who just like to bet money, bet with someone else's money or bet whatever money they have, think the Bills are the greatest thing since sliced bread because they've had 2 unbelievable weeks, and maybe they are. Maybe I'm the wrong one, Spencer. Maybe, in my NFL picks column, I said I give up.
Believe.
Bills Mafia. I picked the Bills this week. I give up. I mean, I don't care if I'm wrong. I just give up. And that is your chalk play. Go through your own picks. I don't need to read them. You're here to read them yourself. Just talk about them a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. I'll go with the Bengals for the best bet. I feel like they're going to bounce back in a big way against the Jets, who coming off a big win against the Browns, but I don't think they're going to be able to handle success too well. So I'm thinking the Bengals win that easily. And the chalk play, the Bills, like you mentioned, Jim, I'm thinking they'll keep the train rolling because the Dolphins are another team coming off a big comeback and has exerted a whole bunch of energy into taking down the Ravens. So now you get the Bills. Good luck, Tua. I don't see Tua and them repeating that performance. That's actually one of my prop plays for the week. Tua's under. And my dog play, Jaguars +7. I think they'll cover that because of Justin Herbert, man. These injuries are no joke. And Justin Herbert, kind of like Jameis, really banged up to where, he's going to play, but will he be the usual Justin Herbert? I'm not sure. So that's why I'm taking the Jags with the points. And then Texans-Bears under is just, to me, this is even more ugly than Browns-Steelers. These offenses are just totally inept. I mean, you talk about 2 young quarterbacks that are just up against it. They don't have any weapons or support. This one I think might go under freaking 15. I mean, that's bad. And then the wild card is where I'm getting crazy. Colts money line, Commanders to cover. Maybe should have just stuck with Commanders to cover, but I was feeling frisky to go with the Colts money line to try to get back over that $1,000.
Well, you know what happens when you go chasing bad money, right? You end up losing good money. So, but I will say this: I like that parlay. I don't think that's a bad parlay at all, especially for the odds you're getting. I think 11 wins you something along the lines of 54 or something like that. Was it?
Yeah, it was. It was like to win like 40 something, I think.
Yeah, so I think that's a good parlay. I think you're getting good value there. I don't think the Colts win straight up, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think you're getting enough value. I do like the Commanders this week. I think Philadelphia kind of comes back down to earth a little bit. And I really like what I've seen with Carson Wentz so far. He has really seen the mesh with those receivers. And Jahan Dotson, to me, Spencer, he's in play for Rookie of the Year. I know it's early, but, I mean, he's already got 3 touchdowns, and he's become a favorite of Carson Wentz.
Yeah, man, him, Drake London, Garrett Wilson. It's been quite the start for these rookie receivers. Even Olave looked pretty good. I mean, it's very encouraging that these rookies are seeing not just a lot of volume, but doing a lot with it as well. Like they're really putting up big fantasy points and, of course, helping their teams out when it matters.
All right, there is one pick that you have that I really, really dislike. And the other picks I have no qualms with. I picked the Jets to cover, but I don't feel strongly about it. I agree with you with Texans Bears under. I think it's gonna be ugly, but I think the Bears actually win that game by 7 or 10 points. But I don't mind the under. Bills, like I told you, I give up. I'm just gonna go with you 20-somethings and maybe hopefully I'll jinx them and be against them. But I don't like the Dolphins either. So I agree with you about Tua. I think that what the Dolphins have done has been a little bit talked about too much. So I don't have a problem with that. But Jags, Chargers, I hear you about Justin Herbert. But I got to tell you, the Jags coming off of that win last week, they're going to be high on their horses. They haven't won 2 games in a row in, I think, 3 years, either 3 or 4 years. It's been a while since they've won 2 games in a row. I cannot back you on this one. I think that, in fact, in my picks column, I got this is my widest margin of the week. I like the Chargers, and it's my number 1 knockout play for the week. I think the Chargers bounce back. Now, I will say this caveat. If Justin Herbert realizes at some point that he can't play with those ribs, because I think he's going to start, and I think you're right in the fact of those injuries, and they kind of linger too. It's one of those injuries that you could play with. They can't really fix it. You have to play with it, or you don't play with it. It's if you can tolerate the pain or not. So if he gets one good smack in those ribs, Who knows? Maybe he has to come out. Maybe Chase Daniel has to come in. Then you're asking a lot of Austin Eckler and
and Keenan Allen's still
Allen's still back.
questionable. We
That's
don't know
right.
if he's going to play. And, Josh Palmer I liked last week for fantasy, but if it wasn't for that late touchdown, he'd have stunk. So, I mean, they don't really have a true Keenan Allen replacement. So if Herbert's banged up, Allen's banged,
Mike Williams, man, he did pretty good.
Yeah, big
last
Mike
week.
Williams, he's really good. And then, that DeAndre Carter's. I mean, they still got weapons. They got guys that could do something here and there. But overall, I'm a believer in Trevor Lawrence. I mentioned that on I did Shane's show earlier. Shout out to Shane Jackson with Bet Chicago. And we were talking. He asked me what was one of my favorite, I think, underdog plays. I said Jacksonville to cover because I'm a believer in Trevor. We'll see how he can do against that ferocious pass rush with the Chargers, but I'm thinking he'll hold up pretty good.
Do you know this Horace Urquhart guy? He says he loves the Bengals pick and was thinking of using that in a Survivor contest until we can give him a better one.
That was my Survivor pick, was the Bengals. So.
Who's Horace Urquhart there, Spencer?
Yeah, my father.
Go figure. We love you, Dad. Thanks for joining in. I'm glad you joined in. I wish I could get my dad to watch the show. That's impressive, Spencer.
Yeah, he tunes in. Yeah, I appreciate it.
That's awesome. I like Cincinnati to win, but it's always scary when you talk about an 0-2 team. And Spence, you want to say that Joe Burrow, this is the week that he gets it back together. It's against the Jets team. I think they'll win. I just don't love it enough to put it in my big bucks for sure. And honestly, I think something weird's going to happen at the end. The Jets will find some kind of weird way to have a backdoor cover because that's what they're best. They're best at that.
Yeah, the Lions, man. The Lions. Those are some
Lions are really good at it too.
Yeah, those bad. And the Texans are good at covering. A lot of those bad teams they end up being values against the spread because those backdoor covers are very real in the NFL.
Oh, don't I know it? It turned my 10-6 week into a 7-9 week. I did get 4 out of my 5 best bets right last week. 3 of 5 on big bucks, but 4 of 5 on my NFL picks column, my best bets. And man, those backdoor covers will change it. Of course, I was on the wrong side of all of them last week. It was brutal. Arizona, the Jets, Miami's miracle cover, and even Atlanta. You could throw Atlanta in there too. So really 4 of them. I was on the wrong side of all of those miracle comebacks. And so really I could have been 11-5 if they all don't, even if 2 of them don't happen. I'm still having a winning week. All right, let's talk about what happened to me last week. My overall balance is now 966 from my original 1,000. We just talked about the Lions and backdoor covers. Here's the thing, though. I don't think there's going to be a backdoor opportunity. I think my best bet of the week, I think the Vikings wrong. Back at home where they beat up on the Packers. They were in a bad spot last week. They're coming off an emotional win against a division rival where they're trying to compete in the NFC North against the Packers. They get over that hump. They beat up on the Packers, really. And then they go to Philadelphia, home opener for the Eagles. Knew that place was going to be rocking. I should have seen that. I should have stayed away from that game. I didn't, but I'm back on the Vikings this week because I think the Lions now have had 2 really good home games. I think they've overachieved, even though they lost to the Eagles in the opener, Spencer. Obviously, last week against the Commanders, much better game. The Lions looked like they could be that 7 or 8 win team that we were thinking about, but it's a much different thing when you go into Minnesota. We're going to come back to this one because I want to get your thoughts on that. My other bets, chalk pick of the week, kind of cheating a little bit, -1. That's not a lot of chalk, but Giants -1 over the Cowboys. I said this earlier on Datitude this morning, and then my picks column, last week I was all over the Cowboys because I thought the Cowboys would use all this negativity to their advantage. But now Cooper Rush has to go onto the road in primetime against a Giants team I said before the season started was my surprise upset pick to win the NFC East. And I still think that. I still think the Giants are going to win the NFC East. I think you're getting great value here at -1. That is my chalk play for 22. My dog play, this is like banging my head against a wall. I'm giving the Titans one more shot here. You want to talk about an 0 team that is desperate. We're going to see what Mike Vrabel is made of. They have got to win this game, kind of like the Colts, except the Colts are in a much worse position because they got to play the Chiefs. To me, Raiders crossing the country, playing a Titans team. I don't understand why they're giving Tennessee 2. I think they're going to have a tough time stopping Derrick Henry. Meanwhile, the Raiders have not been able to run the ball very well. They haven't even tried to run the ball. I like the Titans here in a bounce back, but I'm only putting 11 on that. My total, going back to the well, like the Chiefs under last week. We talked about it. I like the under here. It's now 50.5. When I put the bet in, it was 50. So same as for Zach, not getting that half a point. I'm not getting it here. This is when I bet it. Chiefs, Colts, under 50. Like I said, if I really wanted to bet on Matt Ryan like Spencer did, I just can't do it. I can't bet on the statue. I'm afraid he's going to get pounded into oblivion.
Jonathan Taylor.
I know. I was going to say Jonathan Taylor. They need to give him the ball 35 times. Will they? I don't know if they will or not. I like the under. I think this is a tight game to the end, and I think it's in the 20s all the way through. I think it ends in the lower 20s. And then my wild card pick is the same as Zach's, except I'll put $10 more on it. I like the Packers over the Bucs. I liked it more, Spencer, earlier in the week when not everybody was on it, and that spread was, and in fact, I bet it. I bet my biggest spread of the year so far on the Packers at plus 120. It's now plus 100, but now Aunt Mabel and Drunk Joe are all over it for some unknown reason, which I have a hard time believing they're betting against the Bucs.
The Mike Evans thing. Everyone's worried about that. And Godwin's probably not going to play either. So,
and we'll see if Julio Jones plays. But yeah. I love the pick. I think the way Aaron Rodgers bounced back last week, it doesn't take much for him to get on a roll. And I got to be honest, frankly, I don't like what I saw out of the Bucs last week anyway. They were able to pull out the win against the Saints, but that doesn't mean I think they're a good football team. So as we talked about earlier in the week, the Bucs have issues across their offensive line, not just their wide receivers. So Tom Brady could end up getting hit, if he doesn't, if they don't get some things together.
Yeah, I didn't really like what I saw much from Green Bay last week either, because their receiving core is still a mess. The O-line's still banged up, and it was their running game. They just ran down the Bears' throat, and I don't see them being able to do that against Tampa. Yeah, and Dylan, they've got a great duo there, probably the best 1-2 punch in the league. I think they're right up there with Chubb and Hunt. But I think it's the Bucs. I'm interested to see how that shakes out because both teams are wounded. But you got two future Hall of Famers under center.
This is why I like the Packers in this situation and what you talk about, because I think you're going to see a whole lot of Aaron Jones this week because Aaron Jones does better, I think, in the passing game. So I think that Aaron Jones can avoid trying to run up the teeth of that Tampa defense. He's better at trying to get around where A.J. Dillon's more the bruiser back. Yeah. If you have A.J. Dillon, I wouldn't use him this week in fantasy football. I would stay away from him because he might only get 10 or 12 carries, and it would not surprise me at all if he only had 30 or 40 yards. So I think you're going to see a lot more of Aaron Jones this week than you will of A.J. Dillon. Also, I want to bring back and get your opinion on the Minnesota-Detroit pick. Which Kirk Cousins – we've talked about Kirk Cousins has been terrible in prime time. He kind of went through that again. Now, he did have a lot of drops, and he didn't have a lot of help from his receivers. He didn't have a lot of help from his offensive line. Do you think this Detroit team is getting too much love too fast? You think this spread may be good value at 6? I really thought it should have been more like 7.5 or so.
Yeah, I think there's some value to be had with Minnesota because, they're coming off of tough loss. Detroit coming off a big win. Detroit, another team that's not really used to handling success, which that's kind of the theme I've been going with outside of Jacksonville. So while I'm not super high on it because of the fact that Detroit just always seems to backdoor cover, but I'm thinking that's why I'm like, it wasn't on my card. But if I had to pick, I'd go Minnesota because Kirk Cousins at noon, like in the regular time slot, like he's really good. Like he slings it then. And Dalvin Cook, that I think that's the difference. So honestly, Dalvin Cook, and he's got another one of my prop plays over 77.5 rushing yards because throughout his career he has owned Detroit, just gashes them. I know they're a little better up front, but even with Aiden Hutchins in there, he's more of a pass rusher. Their run defense is still not too good. So I'm thinking that Dalvin will be the difference, even if Kirk isn't quite as good.
I'm going to jump on that bet. That is a great bet, I think. I'm going to go jump on that Dalvin Cook bet as soon as we get off of that show. I think that might be the best bet of the week. That is
my top rushing prop.
I got him in one of my 2 leagues, so I hope you're right there. I need him to gash those Lions and get me some points. Spence, it's been fun. We missed Zach, but we'll do it again on Monday. We're going to wrap it up. Before we leave you, I want to remind you one more time, Caesars, code NOLA full for all you new users out there. First bet is on us, $1,250 to up to $1,250 back. Whatever you bet, you get that back as a free bet. If you don't win, You bet $100, you lose, you get $100 in a free bet back. You bet $300, you don't win, you get $300 back in a free bet. You get it? It's pretty simple. And then lastly, I'm going to remind you to subscribe to our newsletter. I'm doing the newsletter tonight, NOLA.com/BayouBets. We kind of encapsulate everything that happened during the day and all the top news of the day. We have all the links for you. So in case you kind of missed what was happening the day before, we got it out for you in one little newsletter. You can subscribe there again, NOLA.com/BayouBets, and you can subscribe to our newsletter. That is just going to about wrap it up before we finish it up. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to address the Celtics situation. Their coach suspended, looking like for the whole season, which is crazy. It's like a team penalty. It sounds like nothing with the league, So just an odd situation there. But I guess from a betting standpoint, I feel like it could be. I haven't checked NBA futures lately, but it could be a chance to maybe get the Celtics at a little better price. Because I'm sure their odds will shift a little bit, but it's the NBA. I mean, the coaches in the NBA matter the least out of all the big sports, because I mean, it's one of those things where the players have gotten
not with the Pelicans.
Yeah, that's true. Willie Green, shout out to Willie Green. Yeah, so they're not completely irrelevant, but I feel like with the Celtics, they're just one of those deals to where, like with Brad Stevens, they had him, then shifted him and brought in this new guy. So I feel like they're an organization, or they'll be able to find someone from within to take over. I don't see this being as big of a deal as people are making it out to be.
And the NBA season will be upon us before we know it. I think training camps open next week. Am I correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Man, it's coming quick. The NBA always sneaks up on you.
Sick.
They need to push it back a little bit. Start it like around Thanksgiving or something. October's too early. Because you still got baseball going on at that point.
And I've been saying baseball needs to go back to 144 games. They need to have their playoffs during September and stop button heads in the regular season. People are not watching. I mean, they need to go back to – they need to have the regular season over in August and have their playoffs in September. That's what I think. Whether they'll ever do it or not, I don't know.
Probably not.
Owners don't like
stubborn.
They don't like taking games off the table. They don't mind adding games, but they don't like taking games off the table. So I don't know if they'll do it or not. My final thought here today, Spence, is ask you to watch if you like this show. And if you haven't seen it, check out the Datitude podcast, which runs every Monday, Thursday, and Friday. But what's special about tomorrow, a lot of these same channels, in fact, almost all of these same channels, you'll be able to see the Datitude podcast live tomorrow morning at 9:15 a.m. It's Jeff Duncan and myself every Friday morning. We'll be previewing the Saints game, and it's pretty much all Saints. We do talk a little LSU and a little Tulane, but really, if we talk for 45 minutes, 42 minutes of it is all about the Saints. And then after it's over, I go back, I add my monologue and add my closing, and I put that wherever you find your podcast, the Datitude podcast. All 93 episodes are available. You can get them, again, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Google Play, Spotify. Go sign up, subscribe. Look for the Datitude podcast. But that is going to wrap us up for today. Zach will be back with us on Monday when we talk about, hopefully, a happy result between the Saints and Panthers. We hope you have a great weekend. And until then, we will see you later, my friends.